This video is presented for historical and educational purposes only. World Documentary Archives strongly condemns hate speech, violence, and all forms of extremism.
When we look back at the early years of the Second World War, we often focus on the big dates, the major battles, and the shifting borders on maps. But behind those rapid territorial changes were moments of tension, sudden decisions, fragile alliances, and a military machine moving faster than most nations could react. Within this context, we follow the path of the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler, an elite German unit that played a central role in the campaigns against France, Yugoslavia, and Greece. This is not just a story of battlefields, it is also a story of movement, preparation, quiet moments, and the daily lives of soldiers rarely shown in traditional documentaries. After the fall of Paris and the near-complete breakdown of the French military, German momentum seemed unstoppable. Yet pockets of resistance remained, especially in areas still controlled by the Vichy government. As the Western Front crumbled, members of the Leibstandarte gathered around field maps, studying routes, defenses, and supply points. Their planning was quick, decisive, and followed almost immediately by movement. Tanks rolling forward, soldiers deploying along the roads, and armored columns pushing deeper into French territory. Along their advance appeared groups of French colonial prisoners of war, many wearing turbans or distinct uniforms from Africa or the Middle East. Their presence is a reminder of a forgotten chapter. Thousands of men brought from distant lands to fight for a nation that was now collapsing around them. The advance continued toward Clermont-Ferrand, where the local airport became an immediate objective. Within only a few hours, German forces pushed aside the defenders and secured the area. French officers, now without options, spoke with members of the Leibstandarte in scenes marked by tension, formality, and resignation. German troops inspected aircraft, checked hangars, and pushed deeper toward the city. They knocked on doors, demanded identification papers, and searched for anyone who might still resist. Then came one of the most symbolic scenes of the campaign. A wide view of hundreds of captured French soldiers, described by the original wartime narrator as an entire infantry regiment that surrendered without a fight. In that moment, the extent of the French collapse became unmistakable. Yet amid the tension, there were also glimpses of everyday interactions. French civilians in the streets, some seemingly at ease, others merely curious. German soldiers exchanging brief words or smiles with locals. Moments that felt strangely detached from the violence happening elsewhere. At the center of these operations was Sepp Dietrich, commander of the unit. He appears reviewing maps, giving directions, and overseeing movements through towns and villages. A striking visual from this phase is the flag bearing the SS Death's Head symbol, raised over one of the advancing tanks, a chilling emblem of power and intimidation. Not long after, the scene shifts to Metz, captured in impressive aerial shots. The cathedral dominates the skyline, while German troops assemble in formation on a parade field. It is the 3rd of September, 1940. This moment includes a high-profile visit by Heinrich Himmler, who arrives to inspect the Leibstandarte. He walks along the lines of soldiers, speaks to them, shakes hands, and presents himself as the overseer of the SS forces. It is part military ritual, part propaganda, a carefully staged moment for morale and prestige. By March of 1941, the war had shifted to the southeast. The Balkans, a region marked by political instability, became the next target of the German war machine. After a long 10-day journey down the Danube River on barges, troops of the Leibstandarte arrived near the Bulgarian border. Here, the atmosphere was calm but tense. Everyone understood that the next phase of the campaign was about to begin. Motorcycle units arrived at the frontier with Yugoslavia. This area quickly turned into a staging ground for the upcoming invasions of Yugoslavia and Greece. But before the fighting erupted, there was a rare stretch of quiet. In a Bulgarian village, soldiers enjoyed their final days without gunfire. Some shaved, cooked meals, or sat together to write letters home. One letter lies beside a photograph of a woman, a small reminder of distant families and lives paused by war. Others played cards shirtless under the sunlight, trying to hold on to a sense of normalcy before the storm. A shepherd passed nearby with his flock of sheep, walking calmly through a landscape filled with soldiers preparing for war. The contrast between daily life and military mobilization could not have been sharper. When the offensive began, the overwhelming speed of the German advance became clear. Scenes show Greek or Yugoslav prisoners of war marching along roads, exhausted, defeated, and stunned by how quickly their lines had collapsed. One of the campaign's notable episodes occurs when Sepp Dietrich crosses into Albania to meet Italian General Rossi. The encounter is warm and heavily ceremonial, handshakes, smiles, a shared toast, but also practical German and Italian officers discuss positions, strategy, and upcoming movements as they examine maps together. After the Germans captured the Gulf of Patras, something unusual happened. The men of the Leibstandarte commandeered 2 small fishing boats, the only boats not destroyed or taken by the retreating defenders. These fragile vessels carried soldiers and vehicles across the water to the opposite shore. According to German accounts at the time, the enemy was taken completely by surprise. Once ashore, motorcycle units sped across coastal sand, then raced onto open roads where they linked up with German paratroopers already operating inside Greece. Soon afterward, part of the Leibstandarte received orders to push straight toward Athens. A worn road sign pointing toward the capital confirmed the direction. Then came one of the most iconic scenes of the campaign. Members of the unit standing beside the Acropolis, one of the world's greatest historical monuments, now overshadowed by the presence of the occupying forces. In the original wartime narration, a single sentence marked the end of this chapter. The southeastern campaign is over. These operations, from France to the Balkans, reveal far more than just military victories. They illustrate the remarkable speed of German mobilization during this period, but they also expose the fragility of nations caught unprepared. France symbolized the collapse of traditional European defenses. Yugoslavia showed how political instability could crumble under sudden pressure. Greece demonstrated how quickly the Germans could intervene when their strategic interests were threatened. Yet behind the tanks, the flags, and the rapid advances were real people. Civilians trying to adapt to occupation, prisoners whose futures were uncertain, and young soldiers whose lives had been shaped and often ended by decisions far beyond their control. Revisiting these recovered images allows us to go beyond the surface of history. These moments remind us that every campaign, no matter how brief or overwhelming, was lived by individuals whose stories were rarely recorded. And through these frames, we rediscover not just the chronology of war, but the human cost embedded within it.